Returns probably can't stay as high as they have
further
over the last
assets
few
bought at
years.
the right time.
Not only
Very
the
much. I think the argument from the biggest issue is to find the right people.
Aubrey, revenue up 35% to £284 million for the first half of 2007. Pre-tax profit up 7% to £33.2 million. Are you satisfied with those results?
Oh yes, that's a very good half year. I mean, particularly strong in terms of the growth that has come through on the revenue side. Profits not up quite as much. There has been a little bit of pressure on margins, but generally margins have stayed firm. So I think it's a very good half year.
You mentioned pressure on margins. Can you elaborate on that? Where exactly was that pressure coming from?
Well, we said this last year that salary costs have been rising in the industry. I think everyone knows that, and that will clearly come through. And I think that'll carry on for a bit, and then I think it'll ease up probably as we go into next year, into 2008.
Was the period in line with your expectation for the first half of 2007?
I think it was probably better. I mean, the market just kept on going. I'm sure, as you know, when talking to people in the property industry, at the start of 06, people were saying this can't go on like this, and at the start of 07, we were saying that, but it has. I mean, it's been a very buoyant market right the way through, from a commercial through into residential.
Just looking at the second half 2007, which could be dramatically different to the first. So how do you feel about that? It's
a very difficult one to call at this stage. I mean, what has happened in the other markets, of course, has come at a time when the property markets are normally very quiet. So it's very difficult to judge from the summer as to the volumes that we're going to see in the second half, which is why we have a note of caution, because really we just can't tell. But there is a feeling that quite a few of the investment deals are going to go on hold or have been put on hold. Personally, I think a lot of those will come back. So I think we will see it picking back up again as we go through towards the end of the year. But it's just a question of how long this pause is going to be. If you look back at the property market, very few occasions when you've had a long period when not a lot happens. I mean, there'd really almost have to be a crash for that to happen. And even if you go back to the late 80s, and this is nothing like that, I mean, you probably found that there were sort of six months to a year when things weren't happening, and then they picked up again. But I think what we're talking about here, particularly in the commercial markets, the commercial investment markets, and that's really where it is yields have really moved down further than most people thought, and we've just got to see them move back up again. And if that changes, if we can get that change coming through fairly soon, then I think the markets will pick back up again quite quickly.
I know the top end of the residential market in the UK, particularly in London, has been very active. Do you see that continuing for the rest of 2007 into next year?
Residential is still very strong. As you know, we're mainly in the prime market, and that really shows almost no signs of slowing up. Our own forecast for price increases this year is 15%, and I'm sure that'll come through. There's a possibility next year that if city bonuses are down a bit, it'll have a small impact, particularly in the London market. But I think that's going to be very, very much of a marginal impact. So it still looks very good.
Looking at the office sector, there was strong rental growth for the first half of 2007. Are you confident that will continue for the rest of the year?
I think it will. I mean, vacancy rates are still quite low, so that will drive rents. Maybe with what's going on, we may see that city rents aren't going to peak out at quite as high as some people were thinking they would. I mean, there is a chance that the growth in jobs will slow up, that banks may be taking on fewer people. I don't think we're going to see major cuts, so we're not going to suddenly see a lot of space coming on the market. So I think you'll still see some rental growth. And of course, if you look at the West End, I mean, that is almost certain to happen because there's such a shortage of space.
Now, the second half of the year could be very different to the first, given the subprime lending crisis. How confident are you that Savills will be able to perform in line with expectations for the whole year?
I mean, I think very often we see a very strong finish to the year, and that's the normal. And I think what we're saying is this year we think it'll be less of a surge in that final quarter, but it'll still be a very good year. It'll still be more than last year, for instance.
Now, I know your acquisition of Granite was a very important step for Savills. Were you disappointed to miss out on Sonnenblick Goldman, which was eventually bought by Cushman & Wakefield?
We looked at that. I think when we came on the scene, they had pretty advanced talks. So it's only if we had rushed in there, I think, with a huge bid, which we would never do, So yes, I mean, it's a good company, and it's certainly one of those. It was the sort of business we were looking at. I think what we've actually got is actually much better. I mean, that really is the ideal fit. We spent a lot of time looking at the sort of businesses that we really wanted to be in, and Granite was the ideal match.
How important is it to have that presence in North America?
Oh, it's very important. I mean, it's important both in terms of our sort of global reach, that we need to be in the US. We need to be in there as part of our own business, so it's got to be a Savills business rather than a network. And the Trammell Crow link we had was fine as far as it went, but it didn't really give us what we wanted, which was to have a presence in that US market as Savills, so we can transfer our clients in there, we can refer business in both from Europe and from Asia. And it is the biggest market in the world, so it's one that you would naturally feel you need to be in.
You filled a significant hole with the acquisition of Granite. Are you looking to make other significant acquisitions in the next year or two?
No, I think now with that, it means that we've got the coverage that we want. We clearly would like to grow that business a lot. I mean, we're relatively small in the US, and we will plan to grow it quite fast. But it does mean we've got the US, we've got Europe, Asia we've been in for a number of years. So we've really got the basic base for us to work from. And it's a matter now of building that out further.